San Francisco. There's no building in San Francisco. They're doing it in Abu Dhabi. They're doing it in Jakarta. They're doing embassies in China. So the export from Sacramento doesn't have to be only for this county. It can be for the rest of the world because people will see Sacramento as a leader. I'm going to say a little bit about Bobby. I got the privilege of working with Bobby Kennedy at NRDC in the 90s, and we had this campaign to stop Mitsubishi. It was a company that wanted to build the world's largest salt evaporation facility in Laguna San Ignacio, which is halfway down Baja California, and the last pristine birthing and breeding ground of the California gray whale. And Bobby came down, and most people when they go to a place they're not that familiar with, they gradually meet the locals. Bobby came in, and on the first day I was like, where did he go? He happened to decide to join a small fishing boat that was fishing for abalone. And rather than having any kind of air that you can breathe through tanks, they just had a pipe that you would suck air from the surface. And so he jumped off the boat, spent the entire day, nearly dead from the exhaustion of being with these fishermen in the absolute middle of nowhere. I mean, literally it's 300 miles from the nearest village. And it paid off because at the end of the campaign, which took 5 years and we eventually won, the pivotal thing was getting the community on side. And that group of local fishermen that had a lot of financial interest in having a very large industrial facility next to it said, we remembered Bobby, we remembered that he cared more about us than about all the other things that were going on. And they came out against the government of Mexico, against what was at the time the largest company in the world. And 2 months later, the president of Mexico canceled the project. And it really speaks to who he is. He's someone that will take on Democrats and Republicans equally. He's not afraid to speak truth to power. And some of the battles that we will face together in making Sacramento the greenest region in the world is going to be difficult in that they're going to be losers. Those losers are the status quo industries that currently pollute, that aren't doing their fair share to help this economy grow, and they're going to be angry, frankly. I spent 2.5 years of my life battling the plastic bag industry, and it wasn't that fun. But eventually San Francisco banned plastic bags, and now we have 80 million less plastic bags blowing around the streets of San Francisco. Thank you. And everyone forgets the battles, but the mayor's team and him himself are going to need your support. They need you to remember back to these great times when we had nice beaches and people coming from around the world to congratulate him and you on the great work you're doing. He's going to need you to say, you know what? This is the time to support him. This is the time to stand up and say, it's really important to listen to the 62% of us that voted for Prop 23 and to make Sacramento the greenest city and region on the planet. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Blumenfeld. That was wonderful. As we do every month, we are going to hear from one of our policy committee leads, and this month, that gentleman is Bill Walden. He's the president of Technicon, and if you've ever been out to the McClellan Business Park, it's kind of like a science fiction place where new high-temperature gasification technology is being tested. He operates the Renewable Energy Testing Center for the Department of Defense. And the center performs testing and validation, as I said, on waste-to-energy complex solutions and technologies. And he has 7 or 8 companies now that are there. Technicon assists pre-commercial technologies to accelerate, and we hope that many, many companies will be born at Bill's facility. So please join me in welcoming Bill Walden.
Thank you very much. Next slide. As you said, we're going to talk today briefly about waste and recycling. Next slide. Our committee is made up of a number of people in both the technology sector as well as people that are actually in the waste hauling, waste management, waste handling systems. I'd like to particularly thank Greg Hayes and Tom Candris for helping when I was out of town. But we do have a very comprehensive committee. During this time we were meeting, we were all observing the problems of Sacramento carrying all of their waste up to Hawthorne, Nevada. A lot of that was a lot of discussion. So during this time, we were wondering what we could do about it. And so we came up with a prototype. But I do want to congratulate the City Council and the Mayor for passing a resolution just this week to stop taking the trash to Hawthorne, Nevada. But our committee would like to take some credit for this because right before, while they were discussing it, next slide, we had a prototype that we were proposing to the mayor, and when he took one look at this way to save carbon footprint reduction, the next week we had a resolution. So, next slide. In the 6-county region here, I don't know if people really understand the magnitude of the waste that we're talking about. We're talking solid waste now. But every day in this region, we have about 5,800 tons of material that goes to some place, particularly, predominantly it goes to landfill. And today the average is about 4+ pounds of waste per person. And I don't think, if you think about what the problem is, in your home, about how much you generate, high percentage of this comes from packaging materials and other kinds of materials. Next slide. This is a breakdown of the percentages of materials that end up in landfills or dealt with outside of landfills. High percentage of this is in packaging, papers, and plastics. Next slide. The 5 main areas that we focused on were reduction, reuse, recycling, organics in the sense of turning it into waste into energy, and then the logistics of moving materials such as moving the waste up to Hawthorne, Nevada. The first 3 of these, I think, for people that are in this industry are sort of the, considered the waste hierarchy, reduction, reuse, recycling. The next slide, please. So we took all of the work that we've done and reduced it to one primary goal, and that is to take 85% using reduction, reuse, and recycling, to take 85% of the waste out of the landfills by 2020. Now that's a very hefty goal. We think that that's very realistic. We've put together lots of implementation strategies on how to do this. And if you think about what would happen with the landfills and waste after we get 85% out of it, it's not going to be very much left to deal with. So we did some of our technical folks did another prototype for the mayor here, so that we sort of proposed waste hauler for 2020. Next slide. So we don't think that there's going to be very much need for large diesel trucks going up anywhere, and particularly over the hill. So that's our report out, and I'd like to thank the mayor for the opportunity of dealing with this, and to all of our committee people. As a next step, we're going to have Dean Corral come speak with us. Dean Steve Corral is the Dean of Graduate School of Business at UC Davis, and he's going to talk to us today about the Global Climate Summit that he just held. Dean Corral.
Well, good morning, everyone. How are you? Great. Well, I'm thankful to be asked to just say a few words about the Governor's Global Climate Summit, which we just held this past week. at UC Davis. So I want to thank all of you who participated in the event. Just curious, how many of you actually attended the summit? Great, okay, that's terrific. All right, that's a great high proportion. So thanks to all of you who went over and joined us. I also want to say that the summit was a reflection of a joint effort by the Governor's Office, California Environmental Protection Agency, Jupiter Ambrosia Productions, and UC Davis. So it really was a team effort, and of course we were very happy given that the last 2 years the summit was held in Los Angeles. This year we managed to steal it from Los Angeles and bring it up to Northern California, so we're really thrilled about that. Well, if you were with us, you are aware that we had a pretty impressive lineup of folks speaking at the summit. For example, on the first day, of course, we had the governor appear. We had actor and environmental activist Harrison Ford. We had Deepak Chopra. We had the governor of Michigan, who was incredibly compelling for those of you who saw her. And we had George Shultz. And George Shultz, the former Secretary of State, came on the stage and got the crowd into a cheer on "No on 23, no on 23." So he had an amazing amount of energy for a guy that age. I was very surprised about it, but he did a great job in getting us energized about next steps in terms of green and clean technology issues. And then on the second day, we were fortunate enough to have the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, David Cameron, on the live video feed in a conversation with the governor, which was moderated by Ann Thompson of ABC News. And so that was a big success as well. And then I was fortunate enough to chair a panel on financing clean technology. And so we focused on issues around angel investing, venture capital, private equity, and so on, in terms of how to bring new technological innovations to the marketplace to the benefit of society. So that was a very productive panel, we thought. The panelists were Ambassador Richard Jones, who is a former U.S. ambassador to Israel, who now works at the International Energy Agency in Paris. The second panelist was Sapathi Chander, who's the energy director at the Asian Development Bank in Manila, Philippines. And the third panelist was Craig Kogan of Pegasus Capital Advisors in New York. And they're a private equity firm that invests a lot in clean energy. And so we had a very productive session talking about financing issues. And then the day wound up on the Tuesday. The day concluded with the signing of the R20 agreement, R being regional, subnational governments. And it's absolutely a perfect segue or alignment with what the mayor is doing here with Greenwise, because the R20 agreement was focused not on national governments, but what subnational governments can do, such as states, provinces, cities, and so on, to really have an impact in advancing clean energy and environmental sustainability. So there was a signing agreement, and if Lauren was able to do her magic. So here is a photo of the signing. We were very happy for UC Davis to actually be an academic participant in the signing, and our chancellor is there in the center of the picture in the black and white jacket signing, and I think on her left is the premier of the province of British Columbia. And on the far left is Dr. Pachauri, who is the Nobel Prize winner with Al Gore for his environmental work. So, well, that's an unfortunate picture there. Moving along. We also had great involvement by the academic research community at UC Davis. So as most of you know, UC Davis has been committed to clean energy issues and environmental analysis for decades. So we were green when green was just a color. And so we had a series of poster sessions that highlighted the academic research that is being done at UC Davis, and those were on display there in the Mandavi Center. And there's our hero. There's our leader here in Sacramento. So he did a great job in telling the story of the exciting things that are happening here in the Sacramento region. And we were so pleased to have him on the platform there in front of a fairly sizable community from people really all over the world. There were people from probably 40 to 50 different countries attending.